Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wild Moments brought to you by explore.org. It's me, and we've got none other than Mr. Mike Fitz in the house. How's it going, Mike?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing very well, too. How's the weather been? How's your animal sightings been?
Oh, it's been really dry and warm in my area of North America. Like we haven't had rain probably in 2 weeks or so. We need some rain actually because the leaves are starting to fall off the trees. I don't want things drying out. I don't want people being dumb, with their campfires and whatnot and have to worry about brush fires and things like that. So yeah, I would like some rain, but the fall colors are coming in nice. A little muted this year, compared to some other years, but it's always such a spectacular time of the year. And there's no biting insects in the woods to speak of, really. So you can go out there, kind of relax, not have to worry about covering yourself up in multi layers of clothing to protect you.
Nice. I feel like, in Southern Africa, we don't really go through distinct seasons. It's either the wet season or the dry season. It's kind of just like summer and not quite summer. And to see to see the changing of the colors into this autumn kind of hue is something that I dream of.
It is really amazing. I mean, the northeastern North America with the deciduous trees, when the leaves are at their peak color, there's really nothing like it. When you get a good year, like the maples are they're just so vibrant. It's just almost like glowing. So yeah, if you have the chance to visit, or anyone, if you're in North America from the West and you're like, I don't get fall colors. If you get lucky and you come to the East in a good year, like in October, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Nice. Oh, I guess when I go to see my first moose, I'll try to make it in
Yeah, pick
October.
October. Well, yeah, depending on where you are, the peak of the fall colors where I live in Maine, usually like very late September, early October. So, but if you're farther south, of course, it's going to progress. Like
Yeah.
parts of the Appalachians, like the Southern Appalachians, may not hit until late October or something like that.
Okay, well, I'll try to time my moose trip accordingly. Nice.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah. So, what have you been seeing?
I have been seeing the city, unfortunately. I've just been in the city for most of this time, but I am heading to the bush in a week. So I'm excited. I'm actually heading to Mabula, which is one of the cameras that we have. I've never been before, so I'm really, really excited. I'm really excited. I'll be there for about 2 weeks. I'm excited to see bush pigs that we don't really see in any of the other locations that I normally work at. I'm excited to see some brown hyena, all these interesting things that exist in that area, but not so much or not as easily seen in further north where I usually am in the reserves. So that's exciting. But for now, I've been seeing lots of cars. Um, yeah, that's been about it.
Wildlife of the
But
swords.
yes. And everyone, remember that we are live and interactive, so you can send through questions and comments as usual. And we're going to go through some really cool clips. And I know that there's one that all of you have been waiting patiently to have a look at. If you didn't catch it on the camera on Tuesday, I think it was just after we did the Africam show, there was a zebra foal that was stuck in the mud at Tau. And it was just a really incredible thing to see all the way. I mean, it really played out like a soap opera, right? You were invested, there were stakes, it was emotional ups and downs, and I won't tell you the ending. We'll wait to see. But first, let's get through a few hellos. Dear NC, you say hello from Seattle, and thanks to me and Mike for being here today. Our pleasure. Amber Co, you say hello. I'm excited for this show, and seeing the clips and hearing the guides is always interesting. And she's waving hello to us. We're waving hello to you back. Casper's That Ghost, you say hello to Shala and Mike and everyone. Coffee today from Milwaukee. Kauru says hi, Trish and Mike. Andy says hello all from Florida. Oh, Andy, I can't say the rest of your message because I'm trying not to give away the ending. But no, I can't even read that part. Thank you, Andy. We'll get into it. It's our first clip. Bowl of Kittens, you say hello all. Such exciting sightings recently. Yes, indeed. Zygote, namaste to you too. Trisvis says hello everybody. You're glad you're here, but you're just a little late. No worries, we haven't started with the clips yet. Aussie Jan 2 says good afternoon with a coffee. We knew that. You know, it's traditional to know what we are drinking. Mike, I'm going to take a wild guess. I'm going to take a wild guess and go for water.
That's it. Yeah, straight up plain room temperature water. It's the drink of champions, in my opinion.
It is. I've got some tea today. Very, well, it's some herbal tea. It's a concoction of my own because I wasn't feeling too good. So there's a little bit of turmeric, a little bit of ginger, you know, all those things. Rolling Trouble has rolled in as well with your coffee and water. Very good. April Owl says, good morning, Trish and Mike from a sunny Connecticut. Can't say the rest of your message either. Rolling Trouble, you say fall is amazing. And speaking of falls, let's head over to Tao and watch a foal that had an unfortunate fall, I suppose. Oh, there we go. So, as you can imagine, this really uh, scared a lot of us. The foal is stuck in the mud, and that's Mum on the right there waiting patiently. And that is a crocodile. It was all happening here at Tao. Oh, so that's what I really wanted to hear. I wanted to hear what kind of sound she was making, because that is the mum that was alarm calling there. And I mean, even watch the rescuers. They had to put down a stick, which is something we do often when we need to walk on the mud, or even if we're driving in the mud and we get stuck, we can put some sticks under the tires. So it's risky even for them to get stuck. So she was alarming only once only once the foal started to be handled, or when humans were nearby.
Trishala, I thought that when I was watching this, I thought the foal might be just exhausted from from the ordeal. But we'll see. I think in just a little bit that it seems to have quite a bit of energy, and maybe it was a little confused about who it should hang out with next.
No, I think you're right. There's definitely a level of exhaustion. And there's the energy. So now the guides are trying to help it and lead it to its herd and to mum. But I'm surprised at how well it followed the vehicle. There comes mum.
Yeah, that surprised me as well. I was surprised it even followed the vehicle at all. Probably, I don't know how much experience it has, but certainly it's not like, it's taught to follow vehicles from
Yeah,
a young age.
exactly. And she almost has to try and she's trying to nip the bottom of the zebra, like to try and get its attention. Hey, I'm here. You can stop following them now.
I am glad that this ended well for the foal. I was wondering though, Trishala, what makes visiting a watering hole risky for animals? I mean, we know that there's a predation risk, right? Lions use this area. There's crocodiles in the water hole, but zebras again, they're big animals, but they have kind of small feet overall. So that seems to maybe, especially for young, experienced animals, maybe that enhances the risk to them overall.
Yeah, I think so. I think I was trying specifically to look at whether hooves can potentially increase the chance of them getting stuck in mud. But scientists can really do some really focused research, but nobody's focused on that specifically just yet. But I think just common sense, if you have the same amount of weight distributed over a smaller distance, you're increasing the force, right?
Right.
So I would think that the small hooves or small feet uh, definitely is a risk at a waterhole, particularly when it's muddy.
And do
But
you
predation
think
risk.
that?
Sorry,
Sorry,
go
sorry.
ahead,
Go ahead.
Mike.
All right. Well, I was wondering if do you think, like, we know that there's crocodiles there, there's lions in the other area. Do you think, like, if a predator had maybe been paying attention at that moment, it would have been a different story for the foal overall, or maybe I guess, I mean, they could be patient too. There's no reason necessarily for a crocodile to rush in if the mud is going to do the work of subduing the foal on its own.
Yeah, um, it's a little bit. So I think I don't think we were able to see how the fall got in there, and whether there was a lot of kicking and things when it actually got in. But if it if it got if it sunk into the mud and then didn't really do much, it really wouldn't have drawn the attention of
Mhm.
anybody. And also the water level, if the water level was higher and there was a splash or something like that, that could have definitely drawn the attention of the crocodile. But being in the mud like that, just it's almost a slow and uh, almost like a heartbreaking death because they can't get out. They're essentially what's going to happen is they're going to starve to death because even a predator coming along, it just doesn't. They just don't see it. And I was saying this to Mike earlier that some years ago there was a diker stuck in the mud in one of the dams, um, in one of the places that I worked, and that diker was stuck in the mud for the whole day. I found her in the morning, and in the evening we pulled her out. But um, so it was a very similar to kind of towel, but there was a small patch of water in the middle, which is where this diker went to drink. Clearly. But then she got stuck in the very small patch of mud that could still get an animal stuck. While we're sitting there, and I sat with her the whole day to watch what would unfold. And it kind of became unbearable at some point because you realize that it can't do anything, and nothing is coming to end this diker's suffering. So a leopard walked right past the diker, right past it, probably
Oh
within
well.
8 meters. So not even like with her eyes, she would be able to see. Not a sense of smell, not a hearing, just her eyes, she would have been able to see the dike. And she didn't. And she drank from that spot and walked away. Didn't even show any interest. And it was the same thing in that Dika was super just quiet, probably as a defense as well. And I wonder if the foal was doing a similar thing. Like if you're stuck and you don't know what to do, just be like almost play dead in a way. But in that situation, when we pulled that Daigo out, she kicked and bleated and did not want to be pulled out. In fact, she slipped out of my arms, pulled me onto my butt, and I was flat in the mud. It was chaotic. But the foal didn't do much at all. It almost allowed the humans to pull it out. And I think that also comes down to what you were saying about exhaustion. I think the foal is exhausted because that mud, even though you can't be moved from it, it's not unmovable. And that's the tricky part because you still, if you feel a little movement, you just keep going, keep trying to get yourself out, even if the top half you can't see. And so I think exhaustion played a role, and I think a little bit of shock as well, or freeze response. Because, like I said, with the Daika situation, as soon as it got out, it was just kicking and screaming. But the foal didn't. So I think it was still a little bit of freeze. And I think that especially for a young animal, that's probably your best bet because if you kick and draw attention to yourself, you're making things worse.
Yes. Yeah. Even if it was moving or trying to free itself, sometimes we wouldn't notice. I was stuck in quicksand once, and it was almost comical, like in an old
That's like
timey movie.
yeah, that's like a
Yeah,
childhood disaster.
it was at a beach on the east coast of the U.S. There was a pretty high tide that day. It kind of was overwashing areas where the tide doesn't reach. I found a soft spot in the sand and I just started wiggling in it. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I just kept wiggling. And all of a sudden I was up to like the mid thigh. And I was like, you know what? I should probably try to get myself out. I wasn't in danger of sinking. It's not like that where I'm just going to drown in sand. But I found it extraordinary. And I was like 23 years old. I was pretty fit at the time. Uh, I've found it extraordinarily difficult to get out. I was shockingly surprised by how difficult it was because anytime you move the sand, it was just like the void was filled in. And you have all of
Yeah,
that weight pressing around you. It was really, really difficult. I had to work really hard. I was actually wasn't in risk of drowning or anything. I was way above where the waves were breaking and the tide wasn't coming any higher. But yeah, at the same time, I was like, wow, if I was like close to the shoreline, this could be like a really serious, situation. So I can understand how an animal could get in a spot like that and maybe feel like or trying so hard to get out. We may not even be able to tell that it's working. But yeah, that
yeah.
was yeah. So yeah, again, it's
And
just gonna be extraordinarily difficult in those situations.
and did you find that when you were trying to get yourself out, that you were moving a lot even though you couldn't? Like you were trying to move a lot?
Yeah, like you would. I mean, I would just like the amount of like force I would have to put into my leg muscles to try to move. I mean, it was just like a little bit at a time, just like trying to get any sort of advantage that I could because it was almost like a vacuum. Um, I couldn't move my feet up without it
Yeah,
seemingly like that void wanting to collapse on itself, gravity working against me, but also the force of all of the liquid sand around
yeah,
me. So yeah, and anytime I see animals in the mud, I kind of think about that experience and how difficult it is, for them to
yeah.
extract themselves in those instances.
And also, if you think about our leg structure, we have calf muscles, really like significant calf muscles compared to many other animals, and especially compared to antelope. But antelope, when and even equids, they've got really strong thighs. But that part that essentially what is their ankle that's elongated, that ends in the hoof, there's almost no muscle there. There's very, very, very little muscle there. There's lots of ligaments and things like that, but it imagine you trying to pull your foot out. You've got a fair amount of bulk all the way down, and for a zebra, it basically has to try and use its thighs to pick itself up. It just feels like that's a lot to have to pick up if you've got four of your limbs stuck in the mud.
Yes. And yeah, and I had hands. Like so the zebra does the
Yeah.
zebra foal did not, you know. I could ask a passerby for help. The zebra foal really couldn't do that. Luckily there was, staff from the lodge there that came in and they decided to intervene on the foal's behalf. But I was wondering about like the decision making process. It's going to be, I think, very different for every game lodge or and staff. Um,
Yeah.
in situations like this. But can you talk in general just about maybe what that decision making process might be for game reserve staff in a situation like this?
Um, there is no general. Each single reserve has its own
Okay.
set of policies. Some reserves may have conservation managers whose role is to figure out which areas are sensitive, which are not, which trees are protected, which are not, and of course, these types of animal situations. But other reserves may not have a conservation manager. But there's no kind of blanket policy across reserves when it comes to something like this. Um, Many reserves in East Africa will intervene even if an injury or this kind of circumstance is completely natural, they will still intervene. Here in Southern Africa, there's less of that. It's very much a kind of, if it happened naturally, we let it play out naturally. And that is not anything, I'm not saying anything about specific regions in Africa and decision making, but more that certain places or certain reserves have their policy, other reserves have their policy, and sometimes um, it it can change as well. Um, there could be the argument, and I'm not saying that this is how it is for Tal, but if if this wasn't seen on the camera and nobody reported it, would this foal have been saved? We don't know, because we also don't know what Madikwe Game Reserve's specific policy on animals stuck in the mud is. Now, I do know at this particular waterhole at Tau, baby elephants get stuck in a lot, especially at this time of the year. Uh, and so, one of the other rangers that we have on Wild Moments, Kelly, she used to work at Tau, and she was the one that told us about all the baby elephants that get stuck in. But they always get out with the help of the herd. So I'm not sure if this is something Tao usually does, or is it just a matter of them being aware of it where usually they're not, or is it a matter of the fact that it's in front of the lodge and maybe they don't want a dead foal in front of the lodge? There's a lot of contributing factors in that decision.
Certainly, and also the safety of the people. I mean, you talked about like when you were helping to rescue an animal about how chaotic it can be. There's a risk. There's crocodiles, nearby
Yeah.
in the watering hole at Tal. There's the risk of getting stuck in the mud. Um, just a lot of things can go wrong. Sometimes in these situations, it's often best just to sit and watch for a while to see if the situation resolves itself, because there is a risk of
Yes.
actually causing more harm in the future or in that situation by intervening maybe a bit too quickly. So that's often it's very hard for us as like webcam viewers who are removed from the situation to be like, let's just sit back and watch. But often, in my opinion, that's one of the more prudent moves, at least in the beginning, just to see how the situation plays out at first.
I 100% agree because, and I think I was saying this to you all during the Africam show as well, is that we think about a lot ethically. in terms of dilemma. How do I do this? Should I do this? What is the reserves policy? Nobody's told me about this specifically, but it's so easy to just come and kind of just pull her out. And by the time you've gone through that whole process, more often than not, that animal has managed to come out on its own or managed to resolve the situation on its own. So sitting, waiting, and watching for a little while, I think is, like you said, it's the most prudent thing you can do. Because I mean, of course, unless you see poachers about to, there's an imminent human caused danger that 100% you need to intervene appropriately, then do it. But situations like this, it's like you said, it's best to just wait and watch and see what happens. Um, Someone had Tris Visab, you wanted to know if we know how long the foal was stuck. I have no idea. Maybe one of the other viewers might be able to help us. It's really difficult to tell because it's so muddy. So it could just be that it was. So normally you'd be able to tell by like how much mud has been kicked up and stuff like that, but there's just mud everywhere. So I can't tell how long it's been. But maybe Kirst or one of the other viewers will be able to help us. Um, Zygote, that exactly. Zygote says that the water is so low that the croc didn't sense it, or the foal stayed very quiet not to attract them. Absolutely. Like with the duiker and the leopard, it's actually amazing when you think about how animals know how to react to predators in different situations. It's not always run and alarm. Sometimes it's be quiet and remain hidden. Oh, Kaoru and Bowl of Kittens, you're both very, very happy that the foal was rescued. And Bowl of Kittens, you say you had tears in your eye when Mum came for the foal. I want to talk about that for a moment. What do you think was happening there, Mike, when the foal kind of ran to the car and was almost like blinded by the situation, didn't even see Mum?
Yeah, I wish I knew. I mean, that seems odd to me. That it was almost like imprinting on the vehicle or the people in that instance. It seemed to realize its mistake once mom got its attention. Then they went off into the bush together. I I I don't know. I don't. Sometimes animals seem to realize that, hey, this person isn't a threat in this situation, and I've interacted with it very closely. Maybe I'm a bit more curious about it. I don't think that was the case though. I don't know. I was really surprised it even followed the vehicles at all. I thought it would perhaps just stand there and run off in a random direction, and mom would have to follow it, or it would just stand there and be like, "What do I do now?" Until like another zebra happened to come over. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have an explanation for that.
Me neither. I was absolutely amazed by that. And the only thing that I could think of was that zebra foals look at patterns on their mum and they imprint those. So they're able to detect their mum immediately. And if they can do that for their mum and they have this traumatic experience and there are people around, could they potentially have this temporary kind of imprinting happening? Maybe, because that guide, when he stopped the vehicle and was kind of like, hey, come on, come on, it was another interaction. And then the fool just followed as if it understood English, it was it was crazy. But I don't know, but it was a really interesting observation there. Casper's Dead Ghost, you say when the foal was stuck, it seemed very calm and not in a panic, which I think helped it along. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mindy, you say you wonder if the age of the animal would have anything to do with it, the youngster not having enough experience to be afraid. That is a really good, really excellent point. Um, this might be the animal's first traumatic experience, or I mean, for us, I'm calling it a traumatic experience, but the animal version of that, it might be its first experience of that. And so it doesn't know how to react and what to do, maybe. Andy has a question for you, Mike. He says, has there ever been something like this or similar in terms of a rescue at Katmai?
Not with animals in the mud, as far as I know. Well, there have been like brown bears that have wandered outside of the park boundaries. They have had snares around their neck, trapping snares caught that were set for different animals. But brown
Mhm.
bears are so big and powerful that they get the wire snare cinched around them, but then they snap the cord eventually, but it stays cinched around their neck because
Yeah.
the wire is designed to hold like a wolf, which is much smaller than a bear, but that just stays cinched around their neck. So in 2014, we ended up rescuing Divot, who was a brown bear that visited Brooks River frequently. She came back with a snare around her neck, and it was kind of miraculous. All the circumstances worked out, and we were able to tranquilize her and remove the snare. It's pretty rare. I mean, yeah, it's pretty rare overall for that to happen in that part of the world, and for sort of any sort of rescue effort to work out. Just because the landscape is so large, millions of hectares. It's like, how would you find a bear in that situation, unless the bear just hangs out on a beach where you can see it, and that's essentially sort of what happened in that scenario. Most of the time, it's not something that you have to worry about. It's not a common thing. I felt very fortunate that we were able to help in that one situation.
Yeah. And I think that also it's different types of soils, different environment, uh, different rainfall, amounts of rainfall at different times of the year. So perhaps having that kind of clayey mud at this time of the year is not something that's common in those areas as
No,
well.
not
So there's a
no,
lot of
not in that part
very
of Alaska, but yeah.
yeah. Um, Mike, what do you think about going for? We're already at 4:30, but can we go for 5 more minutes so we can have a look at the last two clips?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, we should, because these are cool. I hear. I haven't seen them yet myself, but I'm excited to see them. I hear
Yes.
they're pretty neat.
And also, just as just putting it out there, this is day 30 for the Egyptian goose, mother goose at Stony Point, and we do have the live cam set up if anything happens, if she does finally introduce her little babies to us. So, in case anything happens, we will cut to it. But for now, let's head over to our next clip. Also at Tau, very interesting interaction. And I'm glad that we see this because potentially this could have been the fall. Lots of movement and lots of noise.
And they are very focused on each other.
Hmm. I've actually not, I've heard a little bit of this, but I've never heard this kind of vocalization going for so long. And they are really, really focused on each other. Now, I'm also looking at the blacksmith lapwing that's there because that lapwing could potentially alert the warthogs to this crocodile.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that either the warthogs don't realize that the crocodile is there, or they're not concerned that it's a threat at this moment.
Hmm. It seemed like that warthog kind of noticed something there and then decided, nah.
Oh, it looks like there's a second crocodile coming on the left.
So you can see that we skipped ahead here. So that's telling me that this crocodile was very, very, very patient in that water. Oh, what? Wow. Wow, I think that that crocodile
And
might have even been injured there.
in the lapwing, uh, it just stood there. It kind of moved away a little bit. It's it's like, yeah, I'll just go back to my same spot. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, with the crocodile out of the water, you could see it was not a very big crocodile. But that was quite insane. And you already got a good example of how a warthog defends itself when they're at close quarters, flicking up with the head, because that's when those tusks get the best angle. And it's not, remember, not just the top tusks, but those really sharp ones at the bottom too.
Well, that was really interesting to see. I didn't know how that was going to end. Like, is the crocodile going to grab
Me too.
the warthog and like from behind or something like that, grab its leg, and then, or is the warthog stuck in that position like the foal was earlier? So yeah, but those situations, I know we don't have a lot of time, but I always think about, again, the risk and reward. How are animals evaluating risk in those situations? Like for the lapwing, clearly it was like, I am faster than this crocodile. I just have to watch its proximity, but I'm
Yeah,
much quicker than it, so I don't really have to worry about it. For the warthog, it's probably a different calculation going on in its mind.
yeah, absolutely. And I was actually quite surprised that the crocodile went to the front of the warthog. Usually, when we see animals take down warthogs, they might, in the scuffle, end up at the front of the warthog, but they usually target the back of it because that's not where the daggers are, you know? So, really interesting. It also made me wonder if maybe the crocodile was just irritated with the warthog, or was it after a meal? I don't know. Um, okay, we are running out of time, but if we could quickly have a look at one of our firsts, let's head over and have a
Yes.
look at our first Aardwolf. Nice. And this is one of our new cams, Safari Hook in Namibia, or newer cams. And it's our
I knew
first
you must
ever.
be excited to see this because of your
Yes,
love of anything hyena.
exactly. I'm very, very excited to see this. Having a little bit of a drink. Now, if you look at it, you can see that it's related to a hyena. Well, not related to a hyena. It is a hyena, but it's in a different family to the other hyenas that we see, or the spotted hyena, the one that we typically see. And in very unhyena fashion, aardwolves eat ants and termites, and they have these long tongues to help them suck up those little termites and ants. Oh, you're so special. It kind of looks like a striped hyena, but a little less mean.
Are they smaller in stature because of their diet,
Yeah,
perhaps, than other hyenas?
yeah.
Okay.
So these aardwolves are only about 10 kgs or so, so they're pretty small. If you compare that to a spotted hyena that can get to about 90 kgs, like big females,
All right, so much smaller.
yeah, much smaller. I mean, they can. So here in Southern Africa, it's more like 10 kgs. If you move further up, they can be bigger, but say 12, 15 kgs, not much more than that. So significantly smaller. And they don't scavenge. Very unhyena like. Oh, I'm so excited for all of you that were watching this camera at the time. And then you click that safari snap. I hope you got that one. That would have been amazing. But now it is time to say goodbye. Nothing's happened on the Nest Cam at Stony Point, but if I were you, it's day 30. It doesn't have to happen today. When we say 28 to 30 days for Egyptian goose eggs to hatch, it's that's the average, so it could be a day or two more. But if I were you, I would head over and just keep watching that camera because it could happen at any moment. So go ahead and do that. Thank you so much, Mike, for joining us. This was a really, really cool wild moments.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. I always enjoy learning about Africa and all the amazing wildlife that you have there.
Oh, thank you. We always love having you, but you knew that. Thank you so much for your questions and comments, everybody. Head over to the Stony Point camera and let me know when it happens. But for now, thank you and goodbye.